eBay friends. I'm Suzanne, your hostess, and this is episode number 253 of eBay the Right Way. Today's date is January 21st, 2026, and my guest is Sheila, the doll lady, in Pennsylvania. The big announcement this week is that my BOLO book, 3rd edition, is ready for instant download. This project was sidetracked last fall after our family tragedy, and then moving, and then the holidays. You know, life happens sometimes and projects get pushed aside. But I am back on track now. The 3rd edition was originally released in print in 2023, so now it is available in ebook format and you can download it instantly. A few notes. I have updated the information as of this month, January of 2026, and I have gone through all of the items, checking sold prices over the last year, so the information is up to date. The ebook contains 125 items, large photos of the items, and no repeats from previous editions. You can get your copy instantly at the link below, or if you can't find it, feel free to reach out to me by email or Facebook Messenger, and I can send you the link. The ebooks are located in my premium library, but membership is not required to purchase the books. And my BOLO books are really a case of you don't know what you don't know. Sellers have told me that they actually have some of the items in their homes or storage units or wherever already, and they didn't even know the items had any value. So these books are wonderful study guides. I am already working on converting the 4th edition, originally launched in 2024, the one with the blue cover. Once that is completed, I'll begin working on a new edition, brand new. I have been gathering information all along, so more useful and money-making information is coming this year. So 2026 is off to a running start. Okay, now let's go to the conversation with Sheila and listen to her doll wisdom. Hey everybody, and welcome back. I have Sheila, the doll lady, with us today, and I'm very interested to hear what you have to say about this very specific category. So how are you doing this morning?
We're doing well. We are living in a surreal moment because I started my journey watching you. So being
really?
here is
okay. Good. Well, I just found out my 25 year end stuff that my podcast is in the top 5% of podcasts.
Oh, that's awesome.
And heard in 90 countries and over 4,000 cities. So you're going to be out there now. So hopefully we can send you some traffic to your social media stuff and also introduce you to my audience. And you may be bombarded with doll questions. I don't know, but we'll see where it goes. Where are you located?
I'm in Pennsylvania.
What part?
I am in the Cole Township area where like Noble's theme park area.
I don't know that. So what
It's
city
in the
is
middle of nowhere. It's in the middle of nowhere.
What's your closest city?
My closest city would probably be, well, I'm originally from the city of Reading, and that is an hour away from Philadelphia. So
right, I know where that
I'm
is.
in central Pennsylvania is where I'm at. And I'm an hour from every which direction of a big city.
Okay, so smack dab in the middle.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep.
All right. Well, you are the doll lady on your social media. So why don't you give us a little rundown of how you got into that niche and when you started selling on eBay?
So I started my journey back in 2022, And I took a let's see where this is going to take us approach. I started on Poshmark because I was really afraid of eBay shipping. And I was just so concerned about, I just kept hearing everybody saying that shipping cost you more than the items itself. So I was just kind of terrified about that. I started on Poshmark, and believe it or not, I was selling clothing and roller skates when we when we all got locked in. I started with clothing. However, I have a condition which is very inflammatory to my shoulders,
Mm-hmm.
and I would go to flea markets and bins and that kind of thing. But then I would be wiped out because I was working full time. So then I would be wiped out and not able to list my items because of that. My daughter brought home some skates and said, Mom, here, can you sell them? And I looked at her like she had three eyeballs, and I was like, okay. I put them on Poshmark and they sold immediately.
Really?
Immediately. So that's one of my stories that I put on my Facebook page was how we started rolling, and I show a lot of the skates that sold almost immediately because we were all
Oh,
locked
that's
in at that time.
fun. We started rolling. That's great. Good. And so
Yeah.
what were the skates again?
I started selling roller skate, whichever ones I could get my hands on. Just like actual roller skates, like
So they like vintage with the boot, or were they the strap-on kind?
they were vintage with the boots, vintage that people could still use because at that time when I first started, we were all locked in. There wasn't many places to go out. We were all quarantined. So
Mm-hmm.
I started, and I think my first pair that I sold were like Chicago roller skates, the ones that you take to the rolling skin. And let's see, I kept doing clothing for a while, and I was just looking at YouTube, trying to figure out how do people do this? How do people do this? I'm watching you, I'm watching other people around me, I'm watching everything that I could possibly consume at that point to figure out how is this done. And I promised myself if I would make, I don't remember, couple hundred, couple thousand. I don't remember the exact thing, but I was like, I'm going to take this serious. I'm going to pay someone to show me how to do eBay because I was just
Okay.
terrified of it. And once I got to eBay, I still kept doing a little bit of clothing. And someone local to me was selling a toy lot for like $130 or something like that. I'm not a collector. I've never had a bunch of dolls or anything like that. But I went to her house and I was supposed to pick up like 4 or 5 boxes or something like that. She ended up having a whole living room full of full of vintage toys.
Oh boy.
So I bought it. I brought it home. I sold one item and I pretty much paid for everything that I had bought. And
Good.
that pretty much sums it up. I just one thing led to another. And before I knew it, once I had enough money saved up, I was like, okay, what am I doing next? Because I joined a group and I started to then see people that actually did this full time. And at that point, it was not even in my purview that people did this on a full time.
Like full time on purpose. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're actually doing it on purpose, not just kind of a side thing, throwing stuff out there. Yeah. That's the way
Yeah.
I thought. Like when I first started, I was like, I could do this all the time on purpose,
Yeah. Yes. I was just like, wait, you mean people actually do this like for real? Like they support themselves with this stuff? And sure enough, I was hesitant to believe it, but I joined the group and I started doing one thing in front of the other. I would say that because of the medical condition, I struggled to believe that I could do it full time with clothing. Because if I would
Mhm.
go to the bins, I would need about a day or two to rest.
Yeah, I feel you on that. That is
Once the to- yeah,
very physical.
once the
So,
toys came into play, it changed the whole thing. Once
ah,
the toys came into play, and I think that's why I always say they picked me. I did not pick it. My niche kind of fell on my lap, and I just pulled the yarn.
hmm Now, can I ask what year you were born?
78.
Okay. So you were born kind of near the end of the roller disco era. That's why I was like, we're these vintage lovers will wear anything, do anything that is from that time frame that they love. So that's the first thing that popped into my mind was like the roller disco with the sparkly disco ball above it and all the music. Because
Yes.
we used to go to a roller rink when growing up, and very distinctive smell in there. Uh, yeah, that's nostalgia right there. If they're the
Yes.
older skates, yeah.
I came into it at the right time because we were locked in. Them things were just, like you could see it. I posted it on, on my social. You could see how many were just rolling out. And I was working full time. So I was just saving the money and then rolling it back into the business and then saving the money. And so that's pretty much how I took off.
So have you transitioned to full-time eBay?
I have been full time eBay since 2023.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And do you mind sharing what kind of job you left out in the real world?
Well, I still, believe it or not, I still live in the real world.
No, I know
It's
that, but people, people who are not resellers, they're like, well, why don't you go get a real job? And it's like, well, this kind of is a real job, but
this is
I
more than
say
a real
that,
job.
with humor because our job, yeah, it's real and it's hard and it's long days, but
Oh yeah.
anyway, what kind of work were you doing that you left?
So I was in social work for 14 years and 23
Oh,
pay periods. And I could tell you those numbers because I was counting the days to my retirement. I was
okay.
just like, I need to get out of here one way or another. This is
Mhm.
like, it was emotionally exhausting.
I was going to say that's got to be very draining
Oh,
because
yeah.
you're just constantly trying to solve problems, and these other people, they may not be as motivated to solve their problems as you are, and some things are probably just impossible, I can
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah. I did that for many, many years. I was a caseworker for many years and worked myself up to a supervisor, and then I was training other caseworkers, and I did that for many years. It was soul sucking is the best
I
way
was
to
just going
say.
to say soul sucking because you're doing great work, but it's not just you. You've got to have the cooperation of your clients and all, and that's probably the roadblock.
Yeah.
Is I know I can help these people. I'm telling them what to do, and they're not doing it.
Yeah, it's not an easy job, and I feel for the people that I left behind. I gave it a good, valiant effort, but at the end of the day, it was to the point where I felt like I myself was drowning, and you can't help if you're drowning. You need to, like the flight stewardess says, you need to put that mask on your face first before you
Uh-huh.
try to help. And it got to the point where I was just counting the pay periods, and I still needed another 15 years to go, and I just could not see myself surviving it.
Well, I'm glad that you put yourself first and were able to transition to something fun that you love. And that oxygen mask analogy, I use that all the time. Somebody will ask me to do something, and I'm like, well, today I'm just putting my oxygen mask on and doing me. So I'll get to that.
Yes.
Yes. So good
Yes.
for you for pacing yourself. So, what was the catalyst that pushed you into the doll category?
My inability to go to the bins and to flip through clothing, even when I went to like the thrift shops, and the motion of like flipping through the hangers.
Okay, so the physical work of clothing, and you are right. It is
Yeah,
very physical.
it is.
I a lot of clothing, probably 50% now, but I pass on things that are real heavy. I know you can
Mhm.
make great money on these heavy coats and stuff, but I think, well, I got to work with it, and it's so heavy.
If it's a part-time job, it's different. Like it all becomes it all comes into light depending on the goal that you have, right? So if you're just looking for a part-time job, maybe three coats is not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But when I started to believe, when I surrounded myself with people who were doing this full time, and I started to believe that it could be a full time job, then at that moment, I knew that I, clothing was just, I was not going to make the cut with it,
Mm-hmm.
because I just wasn't, like, my body was not physically going to do it as I do my dolls. Like
Mm-hmm.
with my dolls, I sit here, I comb their hair, I clean them up, put them up, and it's not a big deal. But the pulling and going through racks, it's just, it doesn't match me. So
Mm-hmm.
thankfully
Yeah,
the dolls came my way.
that's a part that some people don't think about. And I don't consider myself like a weak, out of shape person. It's just some sourcing is just more physically demanding.
Oh yeah.
Is it just you and your household?
In my household, it's myself, my husband, and my 15-year-old. I
Okay.
have two grown children that have moved out of the house. So I have a
Mm-hmm.
33-year-old and a 26-year-old, and then I
Mm-hmm.
have my 15-year-old.
Okay. Well, what
So
I'm getting at there
they're
is
pretty self-sufficient.
like I'm single by myself and I have to do everything. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to pace yourself. And
Oh
whether
yeah.
you're by yourself doing everything or taking care of a family, you still have physical demands. So you can easily burn out
Oh yeah.
if you don't pace yourself. So good for you for stepping back and analyzing, like, well, what can I do? What's not going to be too physically taxing? Because,
Yes.
you've got all this other stuff to do in your personal life. So I get that. Now, do you have expertise with dolls in your life, or is this just something you're learning now?
So I would not consider myself necessarily an expert. I am definitely a learning enthusiast.
Oh, that's good.
And I got that word from another team member that I was talking to, and I said to him, I don't want to call myself an expert, because if I do, people automatically stop helping you when they think you
Oh.
are an expert. And I'm
Mhm.
not. I am absolutely always looking for information, always looking to learn. So I consider myself an enthusiast student of the art.
Or
That's how I would.
I use the word specialist instead of expert because I
Mm-hmm.
think that word expert incorrectly elevates people to being superior in their knowledge. And
Right.
we talked about this in another podcast. You want your doctors to be experts. You want the guy, the plumber and the electrician, you want them to be experts. But in our work, I just don't think experts, I just don't like that word because it has a connotation of, they know everything and nobody
Yes.
does in this business. You're learning all the time.
You are. And that's exactly what I said to, when I responded, somebody asked me that recently. And I said, I don't want to be considered an expert, because I don't want people to shy away from teaching me something that I don't yet know. Do I have more experience than a lot of people? Absolutely. I do dolls every single day. My eBay business consists of about 80% is dolls, and 20% is whatever makes it fun for the day. So I've pulled back a little bit from, like, okay, I'm only doing just this and nothing else, not looking sideways, allowing myself to still have fun. I did flea markets very young because I had to. I didn't have the money to go and shop at stores. I had to do flea markets when I was young. And then as I developed, it was a joy to go. And then
Mm-hmm.
when you become a full-time eBay person, it then again starts to become like a have to situation. And through a lot of work and therapy, I determined that, what, I need to have a little bit of wiggle room in the business to bring the joy back to the business. So that's where my 80/20 comes into play. 80% of my business is absolutely devoted to dolls and learning and curating a closet for my collectors. And 20% is just going out, sharing a flea market day with my mom, and just enjoying the sun and just getting whatever shows up that day.
Mm-hmm. Right. Whatever. So you're open to anything, but you just kind of limit that.
I have it very limited to about 20. And those are the days that I feel like I need a mental health day. I'm going to the flea market to enjoy the sun and enjoy a bagel at the bagel shop and enjoy conversation. And whatever happens that day kind of happens. I think I became a little too strict in that, okay, at this hour, I'm doing this. At that hour, I'm doing that. And the structure is very helpful, but at times we just need to lay back for one day.
Well, I commend you for taking on that approach of, okay, today I'm going to have fun. I'm going to enjoy this, because the minute this starts to be drudgery, you lose your enthusiasm for it.
Yes.
And you have to, I think, let's see, I'm going into my 23rd year. I think you have to keep it fun. You have to keep finding out about new things to sell and different approaches and different directions. And like last year for me was the year of the horse ribbon. Like, whoever knew? I've never even been on a horse. And I've sold almost 130 batches of those ribbons now. And I got them coming to me, and I never would have dreamed. Like, I never could have planned that. It just sort of dropped in.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, well, what is this all about? I bought a whole bunch on an online estate sale, and I had no idea this was a thing. But you got to be open to new streams of income.
Yes.
And it has to fit with your personality, your, what do I want to say here?
I call it my energy flow.
Just the style
Yeah.
style.
Your energy flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't run the business that somebody else is running it just because that business is profitable. Because for me, I seen a lot of people selling clothing and how successful they were becoming with that. And if I would just hang on to that, then I would not have a full-time business. I would still be part-time.
Clothing is so competitive.
That too.
I talk to a lot of people just getting started, and most of them start with their own clothing. So those are our competitors. And if you're just selling stuff out of your closet, like you're having a garage sale, you don't need as much money as if you paid for something.
Right.
So you got to remember, these people are our competitors, and it's pretty cutthroat out there with clothing. There's just so much of it. So I think you are wise to find something else where there's not as many people specializing in it, and you're out there looking for those dolls. And do you do doll clothing too?
I do. I have clothing, accessories, and dolls themselves. And I started, a lot of my first jumping into it was on baby dolls, like from the 50s and 60s.
Mm-hmm.
I was going after, it was an online auction, and I was going after this Barbie collection. But in my area, I mean, in most areas, people know Barbie, and they know that there's some value to them. So I maxed out my budget with that one. There was two lots that were up on this auction, and I threw my maximum number on both, and I closed my browser, and I was like, God, take the wheel. Whatever's supposed to happen will happen. And when I opened my computer the next day, I had won, but not the Barbie one. I had won the baby doll one. Mm-hmm. And it was a lot of money for me at that time. I was just like, holy smokes, I cannot believe I spent this much money. But I went with my mom to pick them up. And it was, what they showed on the picture was a collection. But when I showed up, it was a whole truckload worth of them that we ended up picking up on a snowy day. So, and I did not know a lot about them. So that was like my jumping in and trying to figure out dolls that were not Barbie related, because mm-hmm. they were all like Barbie. These were all like baby dolls, and I had not done that yet. So I figured, I pay about $500 per credit when I go to college. So this is like a 2-credit course right here,
right?
To figure this out. And I sold my first one. I kind of looked her up, and I was like, this is not real, but I put her up on eBay anyways. And I'll show you, but this is my initial doll. That is my initial doll that went into my learning curve, and that completely just hooked me. It was like the hook, line, and sinker for me. And she sold for $300. And at that point, I was like, there's something to this. I really need to step up and step in.
Mm-hmm.
So, anybody I tell that I do full-time dolls, they're like, what? And that's how I was too. I was just like, how's that even possible? But you know what? We are a small but mighty community. We really are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, could you share with us some of the things you learned as you delved into selling dolls? Because I'll admit that's an area I don't really know much about. So I think we have other, well, and I see the dolls out there. I just feel overwhelmed by
Mm-hmm.
like, do I get this or not? And as far as if there's anything wrong with it, or I know people just sometimes buy the doll for the outfit that's on it and they just sell the outfit. Anyway, can you share some things you learned along the way that might save others some time?
The main thing that I learned along the way was that any porcelain doll from the 80s and 90s, anything that is saying collector is usually not a collector piece. For some reason, collector pieces stated on the box almost immediately negates that statement. So
Yeah, I know. If they're marketing it as collectible, like clothing
yes,
labels that say USA vintage, it's not going to say that on there if it's really vintage.
yeah. So like as soon as I see a collector edition, collector, blah blah blah, that's usually my cue to go the opposite direction.
That's the Barbies in the boxes, like the holiday Barbie and the
Yes.
peppermint Barbie and the cowgirl Barbie. Like they made them like that on purpose. Although I think the exception to the rule is if it's Disney, true Disney collectible. Like whenever they turned 50 years old, they did a whole bunch of special edition things for their anniversary. But Mattel and your toy makers, like that's not going to be collectible.
The main thing that I've been focusing on this year is I've been trying to learn about antiques. It's not yet my specialty. It is something that I am devoting a lot of time, energy, and resources to. I think that even with the evolution of ChatGPT and your Google Lens and your all the resources that are available to us, I think at the end of the day, you have to really pick them up, see them yourself, and evaluate them from top to bottom, from the hair to the toes. So I stay away from porcelain collectible dolls. Any doll that comes in that has that's in a box with certificate of authenticity, that's almost like a run the other way for me. Any doll that has been in a smoking home is pretty much a big U-turn for me. Your holiday Barbies, your mass-produced dolls that children would probably not be playing with back in the 80s and that kind of thing. I
Yeah, I never understood that. Some of the grandparents in my family would give my daughter, my dad's wife would give my daughter these dolls. And she's like, but you can't play with it. You can only look at it. And she's
It makes
three.
no sense.
She's three. Of course she's going to want to play with it. So I didn't care. I let her play with it. And it was just, she was horrified that I would do such a thing. But I'm like, why would you give something to a child that they're not allowed to touch?
I know, just look at it.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And I will say that there is a collector for everything, right? So there is a collector for the doll that the child was not allowed to play with. And there's also collectors who want their dolls to look like they've been loved. They
Mm-hmm.
want them to look like whoever had them enjoyed them and they just happen to keep them in good shape and they have survived.
Mm-hmm.
So for me right now, the mission is to buy the collection as I see it, clean it up a little bit, but I don't do whole restorations or anything like that. There's collectors who there's a certain age that we get to that Friday nights are just stay at home in your pajamas kind of night type of situation. And I like to get some of the dolls and I call those the Friday spa day dolls because the ladies, they'll stay in, they'll curl their hair and clean them up and get them ready for display. So that particular market exists. There's the restoration market, and then there's this doll has never been played with market.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a collector to everything, and as long
Yeah,
as
and
you
I think
describe it, you're fine.
some people who collect anything, they like the challenge of restoring it. That's a project for them. Like
Yes.
that's kind of like me, when I'm in a thrift store and I find something great and there's a little problem with it, I'm like, I'm going to go ahead and get this and see if I can repair that.
Exactly.
Usually clothing, cashmere sweaters, sewing up holes, or something that is easy to do. Fix it up and then sell it. And
Yep.
to me, that's part of the process. I enjoy that, but not all the time with everything. Just that I think that's part of us as resellers. Like, I can probably just sell this as is, but I might make a little more if I do a little bit of touching up. What about doll wigs? I see that on these online auctions, estate sales, like collections of 10 or 15 doll wigs. What's
I take
going
them.
on with that?
I take them. And the reason I take them is because, much like humans, there are dolls that, have lost their hair along the way, or they were stored incorrectly and their hair just disintegrates over time.
Mm-hmm.
So the doll wigs are there to kind of replace them. And the dolls come from an era of people using what they have and fixing it and keeping it. I think
Mm-hmm.
we've turned into a society that if something is a little dirty, we throw it away and buy something new. My girls have survived many, many, many decades. Doll wigs, doll shoes, clothing, eyes, arms, legs, you name it. If we humans could be like our dolls, we would be so much better for it. I'll find something and need a hand replaced, and you just buy a hand and call it a day, and they're good.
Well, I wondered about that, and that's something on my list to delve into, but I didn't know, like, so say you buy a lot of doll wigs. Would you resell them as a lot? Would you do them individually? Does it depend on the brand and the style? Because most of them are the ringlet style.
The ringlet style is a more of a collector type of situation. So I personally, I those are not my favorite. I do like the mohair wigs. I like the real human hair wigs. I
Mm-hmm.
like, or that the collectors can style,
Mm-hmm.
because they will, update their dolls with a new hairstyle, just the same way as us humans. Humans and dolls have a lot in common, even if some people are creeped out by them. There's many things for them. The hair is just one aspect. Some ladies love to change the clothing of them, and gentlemen. Okay, there's gentlemen collectors as well,
Mm-hmm.
even if they don't say it out loud.
You're like a closet collector.
There's a lot of closet collecting, period. And my hope and aspiration about talking about the dolls is that, this is a niche just the same way as fishing or gun collecting or any other. When you walk into the male basement and you see 50 different guns, you don't like bat an eye. But if
Mhm.
a lady has her collection in a cabinet, there's many comments to be had. So I'm coming out here and I'm saying, you know what, guys, it is time for us to say we like what we like, and oh well.
Yeah. Well,
We
I don't
like what
know
we
if you've
like, and oh
heard,
well.
I think there was two podcasts with Lewis the toy guy, and he collects dolls as, like the Barbies and the not the limited edition stuff like you're talking about, but he talked about Barbie dolls and different things, and it's all from a collector standpoint because he does all kinds of toys, action figures, and all kinds of things. Yeah, the doll industry. There's a lady in our group. I don't know if she's still active. Her name's Shirley. All she does is doll clothes, and
Oh,
I've asked her to
nice.
come on the podcast a few times, and she's just not up for that. So it's okay. But so do you do American Girl doll?
I don't. I don't do American Girl doll because they're a little too new for me. I really like to stay pretty early on. I wasn't quite into the antiques until this year. This year, I came upon a collection that was true antique collection. But for the most part, I like to be in the 50s, 60s, and before type of ordeal.
Okay.
I did, however, beginner's luck, as you would have it. I went to an estate sale and there was a fake American doll in there.
Ugh,
And
I believe it. Yeah.
so here's the thing though. It was a fake American doll, and I was with another girl that is in one of the groups that I belong to, and I go, this looks like a fake American girl, and she picked it up and she says, um, it's not a fake American girl, it's an original American girl. And I'm like, what? Was not privy to that information, but I will let the people know that before American Girls, there was Goats or Gots. I'm not sure how to say it. It was a German doll maker who American Girl is modeled after.
Oh, okay.
So I did not win that lot. I won another lot that I was going because I wanted all these other dolls that were up against the window. However, the gentleman that did win that lot, you had to buy the whole, it was a lot of junk. And I was like, I'm not taking all of that just for that doll. No way. But I did negotiate with him after we all won our pieces and we were collecting our stuff. He allowed, I said, would you like to trade? I thought it was another lady, but it was this guy who got it. And she said, well, I didn't win that. He did. So I said to him, would you like to trade one of the dolls that I won for that one that you have? And we ended up trading. And I did my research when I got home. And she was, in fact, a prototype. If you go to Goat's Wiki,
And how do you spell that?
it's Gotz.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm saying it correctly. It's Goat or Gots. I'm not sure. There's a Wikipedia for them. And if you look at your American Girl prototypes, if you are lucky enough to find one of those out in the wild, as I was that day, you're banking money for them. I think that one, yeah, that was one of a surprise sale for sure.
Okay. Well, and I've learned from other people, I'm just going to throw this in because we're talking about American Girl. There is an American Girl doll hospital
Yep.
that you can send your dolls to be repaired. And like, say she's missing a leg. So people will go on eBay and get the missing piece and send that in with the doll. And then they're not charged for the missing piece, brand new. So
Right.
even the parts, not just the clothing and the accessories, but the arms and the legs and the heads. And if your American Girl doll got run over by a car and her body was smashed, you can still sell the head.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you can do that with all dolls.
Right.
You can do that with pretty much all dolls that are, if they're valuable to you. There are doll doctors in every state.
Okay.
There's a doll, believe it or not, there's a doll doctor association. I went to the Maryland Doll Show this past, I think like a month ago. I went to the Maryland Doll Show, and there they actually had a doll doctor at the show, and she would restring your dolls and put them back together, or they can reroute the hair and create brand new hair. You name it, they have it. But there is a doll doctor association, and you can find them in each one of your states. And it's not cheap, but if it's something that has been in your family for generations, just like any other collectible, you do everything you can to preserve it.
Right. Yeah. And why not? If that's your jam, as they say, there's resources where you can have these things repaired professionally. So I'm just throwing that out because you do see a lot of the older dolls, like the bisque dolls, which you say you don't really do the porcelain, but like just
I do bisque. So there's a difference between bisque and porcelain.
Okay.
Bisque is your fine porcelain, where porcelain, like the ones that they did here in a factory, were like mass produced. They feel grainy. There's a big difference between a antique bisque and a porcelain doll that was factory created over here.
Okay.
So I do like the China heads. I do like the German dolls. I do like the French dolls and that kind of stuff. I don't do certificate of authenticity on German
right.
porcelain dolls.
Well, when I first saw that, when I started dabbling with eBay, and I was like, why are people selling these doll heads? It's kind of like, it looks a little weird. It's just a part, and maybe that's the only part of the doll that survived. Who knows why there's so many heads?
There's a little bit of everything. And it wasn't up until this past year where I bought a collection that I did not realize that I did realize that I've always focused on acquiring the dolls, fixing, cleaning, and sending them off. So I've always focused on the business part of it, which is acquisition and transition, acquisition and transition. However, this past year, I learned from a very high quality collection. I absolutely fell in love with certain dolls that she did have in her collection, but they were absolute items that, you know, if you see at a store, I would not be able to afford. It's kind of like wine taste, beer budget situation.
Well, yeah, that's a lot of us. But I guess if you think about it, there's all these dolls stored away in people's attics, and they're just gonna keep coming out, and it may just be a tub of random doll parts that gets donated to the thrift store. Is that where you get most of your stuff, a thrift store, or where?
I don't have very much luck at a thrift store.
Okay.
I would almost have to take a whole entire day and drive to every thrift store. First of
Okay.
all, there's one thrift store here, and they rarely have anything. The other thrift store is about 40 minutes from me. So no, I don't depend on thrift stores. I am more of an estate sale, online auction, private pick collections, and that
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. I can't, and flea markets as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, how do you get the word out about your private picking?
I've been doing it for 4 years. So I think that people just talk amongst each other, and they're like,
Okay.
oh, this person was very respectful when they came to my house. So I'm letting the community itself kind of like talk for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's one thing for you to say, oh, I do A, B, and C, but when the real people, the real collectors that you have dealt with actually refer you, that to me is the real bonus. I've worked this past year. I worked with 3 different collections, and I spin to every different state. I don't stay within my state. I go to different states to pick them up and that kind of thing. You know, when someone has a collection, they are very attached to it,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to. I think the social work of 14 years comes in handy. That's the thread that connects everything. Comes in handy when you're talking and being compassionate to the people that are thinking about leaving go. Some people are embarrassed that their moms collected a lot of things and they're embarrassed about it. So you need to just respect the dignity of the collection of the family, and where they're at. My longest collection took me about a whole year of speaking to the daughter of the
Oh,
collector.
really?
It was a year in the making, and you know we did a lot of starts and stops. So starts and stops. Okay, come this week. Oh, nope. Come next week. Nope. Oh.
Yeah, it's a negotiation, and it's, connecting with the people, and you just have to be patient because it's not going to happen till they're ready.
Yep. They have to be ready to let go, and when it's go time, it's go time. And I ended up with 2 carloads coming out of that household, and it has changed my business. I also did one last year, which was the extremely old vintage antique dolls that came out of a collector, and I did about 3. I think I went to that house about 4 different times. So it may not, it's not the same as somebody picking up clothing. I may have to work with multiple family members.
Mm-hmm.
And another collection that I worked on last year took me about 3 different trips, and she was ready to let go of these but not those, and then I would have to come back in a month or two, and then more would be left go, and then a couple more months, and
Yeah,
so
like
it's a work in progress.
desensitizing their yeah, I get it, because that's what happened to me with the horse ribbons. I started selling them, and then people, I don't know if it was like my eBay audience or uh whatever, they started contacting me of like, well, would you want to buy what I have? And
Yep,
I'm like, well, I don't know. Let me see what it is. And then
exactly.
word got around in the like horse community that I buy these, and I like the older ones because they're worth more and they're more interesting. They started making them different, like in the 90s. They weren't as long or vibrant colors. They're just different. And so they're not making any more of the ones made in the 60s and 70s, but horse people that have these, they have a lot.
Yep.
That has been years of competitions. And Marlene, the horse lady, she was like, I'm so glad you're finding homes for these, because people don't realize how much money goes into winning those ribbons, because you got to buy the horse, you got to take care of the horse, You
Yep.
got to train the horse. You got to have a trailer to travel to competitions. You have got to have the clothes for the rider and, the entry fees for the competitions and all the money that goes into these. And then you get, a best in whatever it's called, best in show for horses. I forget how they say that. Yeah. So getting people to let go of them. I've had people contact me and, I'll make an offer and then they call me back and they're like, well, these were our moms and my
Uh-huh.
sister doesn't want to sell them yet. And I'm like, well, just keep my name handy. So when you're ready, I'm here.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure you run into that too. Like one family member just wants to hang on and the other one's like, we need to get rid of this and clean out, move on. Get it into the hands of a collector who will love it. So it's not just
Yes.
sitting in a box somewhere. That's my mission.
Like any other collectible, if it's not your jam, then you don't understand the feelings that are attached to it.
Right.
But if it is, it's kind of, and I always tell my male people, you want your wife to get rid of all her dolls. However, you're probably the same one that has about 55 fishing poles hiding somewhere. And you only need one pole to catch a fish, right?
Or hats. What is with men and hats? They're baseball hats. They have like a zillion of them in a special display area and all this stuff. But yet they only wear one or two of them.
Exactly. And it's the same concept. When we're talking about dolls, we're talking about the history of them. Maybe you and I went to a doll show and maybe, that friend has since passed. That
Mhm.
doll holds on to that story of that outing that you went with that person to a doll show. Or you may have made it, or you may have made the dress with somebody. And,
Mhm.
humans attach stories to everything. And dolls are no different. They are, they have many, many stories. And that's one of the things that I would like to say to folks out there. If you have a doll and you have the provenance or the story to that doll, it makes it that much more valuable. If it's your grandma's doll, she came over here and she hid the doll in her suitcase, and you are a first-hand person and you know that story, write the story and leave the dog go with the story. It makes so much. The collectors of now are looking for it, and I highly encourage people on my channel to, create their little golden box. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant. Just take a little index card. I bought it here, this date, this is what I paid for it, this is who I think it is, so that if you are the collector and you pass, your children know that that doll may be worth a couple $100 or a couple $1,000. Put the person who you want to call so that a dumpster doesn't pull up in front of your house and they all go in there because they're worried
Right.
about selling your house and they could care less about your collectibles. So
Mhm.
before you pull up the dumpster, if you have dolls, I'm right here. Don't throw them away. Like, there is a
Right.
collector.
And you made a very good point that the history is so important. I kind of dabbled in ephemera last year. I'm still looking for things. I sold several batches of letters
Mm-hmm.
from, they were all the way from the 40s up to the 70s. And in my listing, I actually read the letters so I could talk about what the content was and put that in the title, where they were talking about it was the Cold War time that this guy was talking about and, afraid of nuclear war with Russia. And that was on everybody's minds in the early 50s and yada yada. And I think that's what sold my letters was
Mm-hmm.
because I put that in the description, like the basic topics,
Yes.
farming, prices of things, part of the country this was in, the diseases people were being hospitalized for, all that stuff. And yeah, it took some time to go through all of that, but people want to know what they're buying. And if you know the
Yeah,
history, that is like the cherry on top of a great item. If you know the history, because that's what collectors are interested in, or the story.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to a doll show, and in this doll show, there was a presentation on Japanese friendship dolls.
Mm-hmm.
And during that show, Alan explained that at some point in our country, they no longer wanted dolls from America over there, and then these dolls became the dolls. There's only a few of them surviving. And without the history of that, you don't know the worth of this particular doll should you stumble upon it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what intrigues me most about them. Do I like the financial aspect? Of course, I do. But to me, the history of the doll is it's the thing. It's if I
Mm-hmm.
can, I do try to interview the sellers. I would get a call from a like a locker buyer or something like that, and I would buy that too. But if I can buy it from the collector and I could get some history behind the dolls, I really do try to fetch that information because I just think it's so intriguing to me. And if it's intriguing to me, it's intriguing to the final collector as well.
And I think the older you get, the more you're interested in history.
Yeah.
Because, well, at least for me, I couldn't have cared less about this stuff when I was younger. But as our world changes, you kind of go back to the day, the times that you love
Yep.
and what was going on in the world then. And I see all these things come up about, when we lived in the 80s, we had rotary phones and we had stayed out at night till the street lights came on and our parents didn't even know where we were and they didn't care and all that stuff. But as you get older, you have more basis for comparison of
Yes.
current times. And like now it's consumerism and mass production of everything. Nothing is special. And the things from the past, they're special because maybe they were only made for a certain time and there's just a limited amount of them without it saying limited edition.
Yeah.
You kind of learn that it is limited edition.
Yep.
Like the old Mrs. Beasley dolls, stuff like that we had as kids. It becomes more special as you get older because like I don't even know what's out there for kids now because I don't have grandkids. My kids are grown and I don't know, but I think that's what people are looking for is the nostalgia and the history, or my mom had one of these, or I had
Yep.
one of these as a kid, and so what if it's broken or dirty and it just sits on a shelf, it means something to them.
I logged on to Facebook today and I seen one of the few, there's not that many doll stores or nostalgic doll places to go. Every time that the holidays come, a lot of people that grew up in the 50s and 60s will throw up all these photos of when they would go into the middle of town and there was all these doll displays on the windows. Like our children don't have that anymore. Like everything is online and you're lucky if you can see stores. It's almost like stores are becoming the museums anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think the whatever the collectible item is, it just brings that person back to that time in their lifetime.
It is a brief escape
Yeah.
into. It's kind of like when you watch a movie and you just get into it and you're like, it's like hypnotic and you're
Mm-hmm.
there. It's kind of like that when you look at these things. I have a few things from my mom, like this Little Red Riding Hood cookie jar is either Hull or Hood. And she gave it to her mother when she was 10 years old. So that would have been in 1948. It still has the sticker on it from the store it came from. And my siblings and I passed that around just to have it on our counter and look at it.
Uh-huh.
And she's not in great shape. She's got some crazing, and the tip of her her hat thing is broken off. But we love it,
Yeah.
and we just pass it. Can I have the cookie jar for a while? And then there's a clock from my grandmother that is a Seth Thomas that was from the 20s. She got it as a wedding gift, and it doesn't work. And we pass that around just to look at it. And it's just that emotional connection you have with certain things. You can't
Mm-hmm.
put a price on it. And so that definitely flows over into the dolls because that is, that was your best friend. You took her everywhere, that kind of thing. So
Yeah, I think one of the things that I would like to say to the public is to like be when you're speaking about any collectible. I think a collectible to me is a collectible no matter what the item may be. It's the story. It's always the story that
mhm.
that makes it or breaks it. Because we both may be looking at that Red Riding Hood, and I'm like, what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything to me because I don't have the story that you have behind
Right,
it.
exactly. Yeah, that it's just near and dear to your heart.
Yeah.
Everybody has things like that. Some people have way too many things like that in a storage unit or whatever. But yeah, my mom came to live with me in 2003. I had just gotten divorced and she had had hip surgery. And so we decided I had this big house and room for her, and we decided we would do that. And that's when I practiced on her stuff selling. But I also cherry picked out, like, we're keeping this and we're keeping that, because she just wanted to sell everything. And I'm like, no, we can't sell Little Red Riding Hood. Look at that my whole life. So anyway, well, we have made it to the end of our time here. You have shared some very helpful information. So now's the time for your plug for your social media. If people want to reach out and ask you questions or follow you or, connect with you.
So I just started my journey on YouTube, and I am PA Doll Lady on YouTube. And on there, I talk about dolls. I talk about being in my late 40s. I talk about running a full-time eBay business, about soon to be a grandmom and that kind of stuff.
Oh,
So
congratulations.
thank you. So I talk about life. We are complex individuals, just like our collectibles, and I talk about all of it without holding back. The numbers, the success, the fears, the face plant, and all of it.
Well, and I love that because we're real people too. I mean, I'm not a one-dimensional, all I do is sell on eBay. I do a lot
Yeah,
of things. And I think you get stereotyped once you are out there on social media. Oh, here's another person. But you're very different. You're not just, showing haul videos and shopping videos. And there's a ton of those. There's nothing wrong with them. But the less there is of something, the more valuable it is. And that's how I look at people like you that choose a very specific product line, and you go deep on it and you
I do.
have a lot of information. So I commend you on that, of intentionally being different. That's Those people stand out.
The dolls picked me. I'm telling you, they picked me. I could have been a doll race. I could have been into the dolls, but my body was not up for it. But the dolls knew who they needed as their champion, and I'm proud to take on the mission of, getting them from the previous collector to the future collector, and to safely transport them from point A to point B. So that's what we talk about on my channel, all of it. So you may log on one day and I am having, a complete fog day, and that's what I'm talking about. The next day I may be winning the world, and that's what we're talking about that day.
So you
Life.
could be called a redistribution specialist.
An acquisition and transition is definitely what I do, with a couple that I do keep for myself.
I did steal that from a kid at the grocery store. He was, putting things on the shelves. He was just a stock boy, but his tag said, Billy, redistribution specialist. And I was like, well, what is that? And he says, I get stuff from the back and I put it out on this shelf. I'm just moving something from one place to another. And I'm like, well, I'm kind of like that.
I know, right? I'll take that title too.
Yeah, that's great. Well, what do you have planned for the rest of your day? We're recording this on Friday, January 9th already.
I know we're 9 days into the new year. So, Suzanne, what I am doing right now and what I'm focusing on for the rest of January is I will be touching every single box in my inventory system. I am on purge mode right now.
Okay.
I'm moving all old inventory that has not sold in the store, and I am getting it out and donating it because I don't want to focus on a storage business. I have a acquisition and transition, meaning moving
Mhm.
from point A to point B, not keeping it in the storage unit. So we are cleaning up our processes this year because we're setting some lofty goals, and we need to make sure that the business is built on a sound foundation, and that we can find everything that we sell, have everything organized so that when my grandbaby's here, somebody else could come in and do it, and the store stays open. I'll be focusing on traveling from here to Georgia.
Oh,
Um,
we're in Georgia.
my son-in-law is in Rami or something like that, Rami Air Force Base.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So he has been stationed in Georgia. So I will be traveling from Pennsylvania to Georgia quite often this summer, and I will
Mhm.
be collecting dolls all the way down and
All
all
the
the way up.
way. Okay, good for you. Yeah, don't miss a chance to hit some new places or do some
Yep.
estate sales while you're there. I hear you on that.
So that's what we're
Well,
doing.
okay, so today is inventory day, I guess.
The rest of the month is absolute clean of inventory,
And
clean
I didn't
purge.
ask you how many items you have in your store.
My store sits about 2,200 items.
Okay, okay, but very specialized. So
Very
good for you.
specialized. Yep, about 80% doll related items and 20% fun items.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for that information, and I wish you all the best. And I'm going to keep you on my list to reconnect with you over time and see how things move along, and we'll have you on again.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. It was nice to meet you.
Same.
Bye.
Next week, my guest is Jennifer, who sells all kinds of items and has some special insight into sports cards. A very interesting conversation you won't want to miss. As always, thank you for listening and supporting this podcast. Take good care of yourself, and I will talk to you next week. Bye for now.